All right, wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much. I'm Shelli Brunswick. I'm the CEO and founder of SB Global LLC. I'm a motivational speaker, author, and strategist, and it's such a delight to be joining Julio for this incredible event, 3 days of inspirational leadership, insight about space, about leadership, about entrepreneurship. So I'm just delighted to be with this amazing leader, Julio. I also want to highlight one of my great partners in crime is here with me. Jen Blank. We collaborate on a number of amazing projects. One was this summer with the Blue Marble Young Scientist Program. So, for those who are watching around the world, that is a great opportunity to connect with a fabulous organization for an internship program with an amazing mentor like Jen Blank. You might get me. I'm not going to put myself in the same amazing category as Jen Blank, though, because she is Herculean and how wonderful she is to collaborate with. We also work together in the G100 Space Technology and Aviation Wing, where we have more than 50 members around the world that are collaborating and creating opportunities to advance space and aviation around the world, especially creating pathways for women and young girls and men who are in emerging nations to come into the space and aerospace industry. So I wanted to give a good shout out to my friend. I also want to thank Thorsten and Phil. I know it's late for you, and I'm really grateful you're joining us live. So thank you, and you get to actually ask questions. So hopefully, you'll have that. What I'm going to do is kind of I shared. I have a book series called What Space Got to Do with It. And the first book came out last year, and it was called 10 Life Lessons for Personal Growth. And Julio was so kind, he let me do a talk about it. And this book, 10 Life Lessons for Personal Growth, is really about that personal growth for that young professional, 35 and younger. We might call them the Space Generation Advisory Council age group, and even into high school and junior high, helping those young leaders find their way, network, build relationships, and overcome some things that Jen, who's one of the amazing thought leaders, we've put in the book. And then after that first book came out, 10 Life Lessons for Personal Growth, I wrote a second book, and that just came out, and it's called An Interstellar Guide to Success. And this one is more related to professional development, professional mastery. And what I mean by professional mastery is it has four main pillars. It's about leadership, and I talk about really self-leadership, because before you can lead others, you really got to lead yourself. And no matter what you're doing, you are the CEO of your company, yourself. So that leadership pillars comes first. Then you have awareness. And once you know about self leadership, then you can look at awareness. What are the wonderful opportunities out there that might be waiting for you to find them? But you got to find them. So, this awareness section is about finding the compass to find those unique opportunities. Then you have to find access points. And there are so many great programs like Julio's, but many times people might not know that's a great access point into the space industry or leadership or policy, um, entrepreneurship. So we have to create those access points. And then the last step is really critical. It's about taking action. It's about the execution. So there are a lot of great visionaries out there, a lot of great leaders, but if you can't take your great idea and you can't execute on it, then you're not going to really get anywhere. So you got to have leadership and execution. And that's what that action pillar is about. So as I highlighted, we're going to talk about these four pillars briefly. And again, anybody on the call, you're welcome to answer. I'll answer questions as well. But as I highlight, that leadership is self-leadership. You're the CEO of your life, of your career, and that is the most important leadership. And so I say you need to take charge of that. And in this first chapter of the book, which is leadership, I interviewed three amazing thought leaders. Her Excellency Amina Garib Fakim, the former president of Mauritius. I interviewed His Excellency Dr. Al-Asiri, who's the CEO of the Bahraini Space Agency. And many of you probably already know Professor Simonetta Tebippo because she's the former UNUSA director. And we'll kind of talk a little bit again. This is about that self-leadership. And what Her Excellency describes, Dr. Amina, is that you have to believe in yourself, especially when nobody else does. So sometimes you might have big dreams, you might have big goals. Maybe you're in a country that doesn't have a space economy. I have a great, amazing leader from Cameroon named Desmond. He's in that first book. And Cameroon didn't have a space industry. And he was telling everybody, his family and friends, he wanted to be in the space industry. And it wasn't that they didn't believe in his dream, but they didn't want to see him get hurt because there really wasn't a career path in space in Cameroon. But Desmond believed in himself. And so he got a degree in Cameroon. He went to Nigeria and worked for the Nigerian Space Agency. And eventually he came to the United States. He went to Arizona State University. He got another master's degree. And now he is in the space industry here in the United States. So sometimes you may have a dream, don't give up on it. Even if maybe space or that dream isn't happening in your community or your country, that doesn't mean you can't find a way. So you've got to believe in that vision, in that passion you have. Dr. Al-Asiri, he highlights that leadership begins the moment you decide to take responsibility. So maybe you don't have the title. Maybe you're not the CEO of the Bahraini Space Agency, but you don't have to be at that level to take responsibility for your actions, for your goals, for what the impact you want to have on the world, how you can help others. When you take that responsibility, you're already a leader. And in today's world, you can be a leader in so many ways without having a formal title. You have social media influencers, you have people on LinkedIn. You can be a leader in your community. I know another amazing leader from Cameroon. She's also in that first book. Her name is Asta, and she's part of the nomadic tribes of northern Cameroon. And she is the first woman in her tribe to become an engineer as a woman. And so she's already, before getting that engineering degree, before trying to do volunteer work, she already demonstrated leadership. She already was a leader because she made the decision to become an engineer. And now she's helping other young men and women in her tribal land as well as elsewhere learn about space and technology to help better their lives as nomadic people and thriving on the land as well as growing food. So, and we know uh, Julio's already had several speakers who've talked about space and agriculture. And so there's many opportunities that you can follow with Julio on other talks, or you can Google that, or UNUSA, that United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, has lots of great information about space and agriculture. And then, of course, many of you know Professor Simonetta. She, again, was the former UNUSA director, and she talked about true leadership is knowing when to lead from the front. So I was in the military for many years, and they definitely taught us how to be leading from the front. But you also have to know as a leader when to step back and when others take leadership. And that's really about how you create and grow other leaders. And that's when you really have impact, because when you're leading from the front all the time, and sometimes that's needed when you have inexperienced people, they need more direction. And Jen and I have worked together as mentors before. She knows that I'm less of a leading from the front and I'm more of stepping aside and letting others take the helm and letting them learn that way as well, because then we're exponentially growing more leaders for the future. And that's what our real goal is as we are in the space industry and aerospace industry, is we want to create more future leaders for this industry and beyond. So I kind of talk about Sir Peter Beck. You know, he kind of paved his own way. Remember that self-leadership, that's what we're talking about. You know, he really wanted to come and work at NASA, but he's from New Zealand, so he's a foreign citizen. So there wasn't a pathway for him to come to the United States and get a job at NASA. So he didn't let that phase him. It altered his dream, but he decided, hey, I'll create a rocket company. And so that's what he did. That's how he got in the space industry. So again, he made he made that self-leadership. He knew where he wanted to go. He knew he wanted to be in the space industry. NASA wasn't a pathway. He created his own pathway. He took responsibility before he was a CEO of a company. He took responsibility for his dream and he found a way to make it happen. And as we think about leadership, it also requires investment of your time, your resources. And Julio's program is a great form of investing in yourself because this program is providing you so many great speakers who are giving you insights into information and access points. And Warren Buffett is a well-known U.S. businessman and philanthropist. And what he says is the best investment you can make is in yourself. So there are many things you can invest in, whether it's a new home or stocks or a car. But when you take a class or you watch a YouTube video or you join Blue Marble for a webinar or you participate in a NUSA program or Space Generation Advisory Council, or you go to Julio's program, you're investing in yourself. And that is the best investment you can make. So we're going to kind of transition out of the leadership because I said there are 4 pillars, and we're going to kind of talk at least about each one a little bit. So that next pillar is about awareness. So after you've done the self-leadership and you know where you want to go, your dreams, maybe you've done a SWOT analysis on yourself, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, you have a focus. Now you can pivot into creating awareness. Where are the opportunities that now tie in to that self-leadership work you did? What are your strengths? Where could you go? What are your goals? What are the opportunities? So now leadership has given you the launch pad, but awareness gives you the navigation system to get to where you want to be. So I have 3 chapters that relate to awareness in the book. So I'm going to talk about one leader from each chapter. So hopefully that's okay, Julio. We'll kind of keep it a little shorter that way. So what I want to do is these are the 3 leaders for this chapter, but we're going to talk about Alma, who's the executive director for World Space Week. Now, hopefully, many of you are already familiar with World Space Week. It takes place in October every year. It's the largest space party in the world. Countries everywhere participate, thousands of events in person and virtually. And what Alma says about awareness, her passion for what she does leading World Space Week is that awareness is that first spark of transformation. When Desmond was sitting in Cameroon wanting to be in the space industry, he knew what he wanted to do. But until he could find a pathway to Nigeria, and then he became an international teacher liaison for Space Foundation, and then he found an opportunity at Arizona State University. Until he found those awareness points, he didn't have that spark for transformation. He had to find it. And that's what awareness is about. It's helping you find the spark and find that pathway. And so Alma shares a great story. And for those of you listening, World Space Week, a great opportunity to connect globally for a whole week on different space events. And Julio, I know you have several events that take place during World Space Week as well. So we're going to talk about another chapter on awareness, because again, there are 3 chapters in the book, and that's about storytelling. It's always fun to hear the facts and the figures, and that's connects with people's heads. But if you want to really connect with people's hearts, if you want to move people, you need to tell a story. And storytelling is how we can create that influence. So I have 3 incredible leaders who are storytellers. So for our leaders that are, I'm going to talk about Valerie because she's located in Korea, and I want to make sure we highlight some leaders from different parts of the world. So Valerie is the founder of World Citizen Artists. She's also a member of Women Tech Network. I'm also a member of Women Tech Network. Now, Women Tech Network is a global organization for men and women who want to be in technology. So it's a great fit for people who want to be in space or entrepreneurship. They have mentoring programs, they have conferences in person, virtually. They're located almost in every country. Valerie leads the office in Korea. So what she talks about being a storyteller, and she'd done storytelling, she did some things for the UN as well as World Citizen Artist, but true leadership doesn't raise its voice. It's about raising others. How can you amplify other people? How can you help them? Again, I'm talking about Jen Blank, an incredible leader. She mentored uh, some incredible interns over the summer with Blue Marble, and many of them were on Julio's program. Jen mentored them, helped them put together talks. Thank you, Jen, for your leadership because you're creating that next generation. You amplified their voices, and that's exactly what leaders do. So I wanted to highlight Pulitzer Prize winning Doris Kearns Goodwin, who recalls how the young Abraham Lincoln, he could educate, he could entertain, and he could move audiences. So for those of you who might not know who Abraham Lincoln was, he was a president in the United States. And this is before teleprompters and TV. He could go to the center square of a community, get on a stump with no slides, no scripts, and tell stories, and people love to line up to listen to him. You don't need PowerPoints. You don't need microphones or teleprompters. You just need stories and the passion to share them. And that's what good leadership is. And that third chapter on awareness is about role models. Being a role model. You never know when you're a role model. When you post something on LinkedIn, or Julio's putting programmings out there, or Jen is doing Blue Marble, you don't know who's watching you. You don't maybe not think you're a role model, but you might be, because somebody else might see your leadership from somewhere else in the world and say, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to become. I want to learn more about them. So you are a role model no matter where you are. Maybe you're a college student, but you're a role model for somebody in high school. Three great role models that I want to highlight here. I want to talk about Dr. Catherine Nakalibi. And Dr. Catherine Nakalibi is from Uganda originally. She's now here in the United States. She is a professor at the University of Maryland, but she's also the NASA Harvest Director. And she actually won the NASA Harvest, the food award from the African Space Food Award, because of using space technology to help farmers in Africa. And so she's a role model. She just came out with a TEDx, and I posted about her last week on LinkedIn, and somebody sent me a note and said, "Oh, I love Dr. Catherine. I can't wait to watch her TEDx." So she's a role model. Maybe somebody doesn't even know her, but she did a TEDx. She's talking about how space technology can help farmers not only in Africa but around the world, in Latin America, in Asia. She's an incredible role model, what she's doing in NASA Harvest. And again, more role models. I don't have to say too much about my good friend, Dr. Cyan Proctor. I know, Julio, you're very familiar with Cyan. She's done some programs with you, and I'm honored to have worked and spoken at several conferences with her. She is an incredible role model to be part of space, to be a commercial astronaut, to win a seat, to be an artist. She demonstrates that space is for everyone. So those were the first two pillars, that leadership and awareness. Now we're going to pivot into the next three chapters of the book, which are on access, because access has to be built into the system. You don't create access afterwards. One of the people I interviewed, Dr. Catherine, actually described it this way. She had a friend come to dinner at her mother's house, and her friend was a vegetarian. Her mother didn't quite understand what vegetarian is, and I might not be saying the story exactly like her, but I want to use this example. So what her friend did is, when the food came out, she separated the parts of the meal that were not vegetarian. Now, it still worked. She had a delicious meal, but not an ideal circumstance. And sometimes that's how we set up programs. We don't think about all the people that might need to use that program or be part of that program. Whereas I'm going to a dinner tonight too. So we've already looked it up. Like, I have a gluten allergy, so I have food allergies. We looked it up. Will I be able to eat something tonight, or will I be picking through the food and seeing if there's anything I can eat. So it's always best to create that access in there. Julio has a wonderful program for space habitat. I talked about Jen and her amazing program with she partners in for Blue Marble. So it's really about creating systems. And I really highlight a lot about policy, whether it's policy in government or it's in the policy in academia or your institution, because policies really create that system. Three great leaders, Dr. Anino, Dr. Muhammad Sharif, and Bodil Valero. So I'm going to talk about Dr. Muhammad because our Dr. Sharif, many of you already know him. He is an amazing advisor and director of science and space for ISESCO, the Islamic World Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. I know he's at COP30 right now, talking about space and climate change. So, what he's doing, and the director general at ISESCO are creating a system of pathways for people to come into the space industry. And what they're doing is creating entrepreneurship programs, CANSAT programs. They're creating these access points, not just in one country, but ISESCO has 54 member countries. And you don't even need to be a member country for them to want to partner with you. They have observer countries as well. So they are creating these incredible programs. They try to always include 50% women. And I've been so fortunate to partner with ISESCO on many of these programs for entrepreneurship. Uh, this year alone, they had the sixth Vice Chancellors Conference in Rabat talking about the future of education. What does the 21st century education need to look like? In past years, they've done CANSAT programs to inspire kids from around the world to get excited about space. They even bring in ministers of education. So this is one of those access points. ISESCO is building a system that creates access for the future space leaders. Okay, so another access point that I'll highlight, so this is a separate chapter, is entrepreneurship. You know, many times entrepreneurship can not only launch a business, and can be scary. Both Jen and I have some businesses of our own, but you know what entrepreneurs do? They're solving problems with bold ideas, and they're creating a space economy that creates jobs for many more people. So I have three great entrepreneurs that I have highlighted here. What I want to do is I'm going to talk about John, Crazy John, because he's not only an entrepreneur, he's a rap star, he's an investor, he is interdisciplinary. So I want to tell all my colleagues out there, you can be interdisciplinary. You can be a business leader, an entrepreneur, an engineer. We need interdisciplinary leaders, and John is exactly what that is. And he talks about how entrepreneurship is the art of expressing your vision without permission. You don't need to ask somebody if you can be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs see a problem, they create a solution to solve the problem, and they execute it. And so, and as I highlighted, John is not only an investor and entrepreneur, he's a hip hop startup, a hip hop artist, a startup. He does global diplomacy and he's out of Japan. So, for those of you who are in Japan or the region, he has several groups there, you know, Startup Grind to help entrepreneurs. That is another access point. Then, what we can look at, this is the third chapter on access. And that's how creating purpose-built pathways. So I have three incredible leaders. I know Jen knows Graham right here from Blue Marble. So since I've already talked so much about Blue Marble and Jen, what I want to do is highlight Hannah from Australia. Now, she is a co-founder and managing director of the Carmen Project. So for those of you who don't know about the Carmen Project, this is an incredible global program that does an annual fellowship program that brings in fellows from around the world to solve challenges right here on Earth. Using, guess what? A lot of it is using space technology, space insights. And as she shared during our interview, she says before somebody can walk a path, they got to know it exists. You know, it doesn't just magically appear. And that's part of what the Carmen Project has done by creating this fellowship. They've created a pathway, they've built networks, they've helped others come into the space ecosystem and solve challenging problems. So I wanted to highlight Bill Gates, who some of you may know is the co-founder of Microsoft, but he's a really big philanthropist. And what he highlights is that you don't have to have the solution. So if you want to be an entrepreneur or you want to be a leader, you may not know the solution, but you just have to willing to be part of it. And that means listening to others, working with others, creating those access points together. We don't have to do it alone. All right, so now we're into the fourth pillar of the book, taking action. So remember, I talked about that at the beginning. We have leadership, awareness, access, and now action. And action is execution. So this is critical. So the first step is learning. If you want to be a rocket scientist, you have to have a degree. If you want to be a STEM professional like Jen, you're going to have to get a degree. If you want to go to Mars, or you want to go to the moon, you might want to do some analog missions. You need to talk to Julio. So the important part is you need to take action to learn. So it could be formal education, informal, even voluntary work. You know, Space Generation Advisory Council has amazing voluntary opportunities to help you grow your leadership. Now, the person I want to highlight for this one is Katie Ramirez. She is in the United States. She lives in Texas now, but she's originally from Mexico. And she wants to highlight that, and she wants to bring her programs, uh, Spaceport Mexico, MX, all throughout Latin America. So, Julio, I don't know if you're already partnering with her, but she believes that space belongs to everybody. And she wants to be part of creating those access points for everyone through educational programs. So, education is that first one. Again, formal, informal, volunteering. So, we have 3 chapters in that take action. So the second chapter in taking action is about networks. You know, networks don't just happen. They require time, nurturing effort, and they're like cultivating and like the stars in the heavens. It's about cultivating those stars. Those are your relationships. 3 incredible leaders who have been part of creating that. And the one I'm going to highlight again, I'm going to highlight Anna from Women Tech Network because I already spoke about this as a great organization for many of your listeners to check out. Because networking isn't about what you get, it's about what you give. You know, every time I mentor someone, I learn so much more from them, so many more insights. And not even that, but most of the people that I've mentored, I've ended up being lifelong friends with. I just had a call today from somebody I was part of Women Tech Network with. Um, we just talked today and caught up on what's going on, and she's out of Colombia. And so this can be a great organization for people who are listening, whether you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to find technology. Again, they have a mentoring program. So this could be a great resource for you. There's no cost, and it's a wonderful opportunity. The G100 is another opportunity. It was in another slide, but we didn't talk about that leader this time. And then we're going to talk about that third. Oh, I wanted to highlight this book before we move on called Your Network is Your Net Worth by Porter Gale. The more relationships you build, and these are relationships, not collecting business cards, relationships, building long-term relationships with people. That is your net worth. That helps you find jobs, grants, internships, partnering opportunities. Build your network. And I highlight Dr. Ivan has a great way of saying it. Networking is more about farming than hunting. So it's not collecting those business cards, it's about cultivating those relationships. So now we're going to talk about that last part of actions. Remember, 4 pillars, 3 chapters. So the 3 chapters in action, you had education, you now had networking, and now we're going to talk about mentorship. Mentorship isn't guidance, it's the propulsion for your journey. So I have 3 great leaders I'm going to talk about. And oh my goodness, they're all so amazing. So I'm going to talk about Ingrid because Ingrid is who I talked to today earlier. I met her through Women Tech Network. She's an amazing entrepreneur and leader from Colombia. She was part of World Space Week Astropreneur program. So not only is she an entrepreneur and a leader, she is also a mentor to other entrepreneurs. And she talks about mentorship isn't about giving, it's about growing, and that it's a two-way conversation. I call it digital twin mentoring because it's not really one person mentoring the other. It may seem that way, but you're each getting something complementary. Right now, through that World Space Week program, I have a protege who's out of Azerbaijan, and she is amazing. We talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about the space industry. She's taught me how I can expand my book distribution globally because she's like, we can't get your book here through Amazon. Here are some other ways you could distribute it here in Azerbaijan. She's mentoring me. So it's digital twin mentoring. So as I said, there's my great friend Jen. As I said, mentoring is amazing. And as Jen said, she's a mentor because she wants to create those access and opportunities that maybe she didn't have earlier in her career. And I'm so grateful that Jen's my friend. And thank you, Jen, for supporting me today. You didn't think I'd miss you. And again, we have so many great things. Here on my last slide, here's a program I did for the U.S. Embassy in Lomé, which is Togo, Africa. I went out and visited with students in the community to talk about space and careers. So I took my slides down. So I kind of highlighted those big pillars. Leadership is self-leadership, that awareness, access, and action. In addition to the book, there are complimentary YouTube videos on my YouTube, Shelli Brunswick YouTube, where I've interviewed these global thought leaders that I've just spoken about. So there are 30 thought leader interviews in this book. And not only are they in the book, but there's also interviews with them on YouTube that you can check out for free on Shelli Brunswick. So, Julio, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you for letting me have extra time. I hope you and your audience were delighted by this, and I'm so grateful. Thank you for those who were able to join live, and I look forward to hearing not only your questions, but also when you share this virtually. I look forward, anybody, if you're looking to connect, I'm on LinkedIn. You're welcome to send some comments or questions through LinkedIn. So thank you, Julio. And the sky is not the limit. There are no limits.